Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, we will be discussing how to build muscle as a beginner. So some background about me, I've been bodybuilding for 8 years. In my first 16 months of training, I put on 25 pounds of muscle. I went from 140 pounds at 9.9% body fat to 165 pounds at 9% body fat. And if I could go back and if I had to build muscle as quickly as possible, or if I was teaching someone who's a complete beginner how to build muscle as quickly as possible, here's how we do it. Alright, let's go. Step one, you want to find a bodybuilding routine online. Now, it's important that you want to follow a bodybuilding routine online because a bodybuilding routine will ensure that you're doing all of the right exercises and that you're hitting every muscle. What's most important about the routine is that you're hitting every muscle group. A lot of beginners, they don't know any better, so they might neglect to train certain muscles. For example, a lot of beginners, when they're training their shoulders, they might not train their delts. They might not train their traps. When they're training legs, they might not train their both hips or their glutes. So yeah, you want to find a routine, and I'd recommend finding a routine that hits every muscle 1 day a week. So for example, when I first started, I followed a routine that was 4 days a week. Monday, I trained shoulders and traps. And this was important because, like I said, a lot of beginners don't train traps. They're very important for developing a stronger physique and preventing injuries, and just having overall strength, being well rounded. Shoulders, when I trained shoulders, this routine was really good because I hit every head of the shoulder. A lot of beginners, they neglect to hit rear delts. So it's very important. Tuesday, lats and biceps. Wednesday, chest and triceps, and Thursday was legs. And again, when I train legs, I hit the calves, quads, hamstrings, both hips and glutes. A lot of beginners, myself included, didn't really train the quad, or excuse me, didn't really train the glutes or the hips as much as they need to, which leads to imbalances and weaknesses. So they're very important to train. When I was training biceps, I was training both heads of the biceps, training triceps, training all three heads of the triceps, training chest, training upper and upper chest, and just your overall normal chest exercises. So you want to find a routine that trains every muscle once a week, and it hits every aspect of your muscle. Okay, of the muscle that you're training. All right, number two, you want to eat in a caloric surplus. All right, so in order to gain weight, in order to gain muscle, you must be in a caloric surplus. All right. So, in order to eat in a caloric surplus, you first have to know what your maintenance calories are. And for those of you who don't know, your maintenance calories are the amount of calories you eat in a day to maintain your body weight. Okay. And you can find this by going on Google and searching for TDEE calculator. Okay. You go to Google, you search TDEE calculator, you enter in their information it requests of you, and it'll give you a maintenance calories. Okay. So, let's say you enter in the information and it says your maintenance calories are 3,000 calories per day. If you eat 3,000 calories per day, you'll maintain body weight. If you eat over 3,000 calories per day, you'll gain weight. If you eat below 3,000 calories per day, you'll lose weight. Okay. So what I did was I wanted to gain weight quickly. So I ate in about anywhere from like a 250 to 1,000 calorie surplus per day. As a complete beginner who weighed 140 pounds, I just wanted to put on weight. I put on a little fat too, of course. I ended up losing it during the 16-month stint, but if you're a beginner, I'd recommend, and especially if you're really skinny, I would eat in a surplus of 500 calories. So if your maintenance is 3,000 calories, you eat 3,500 calories a day. Um, a surplus of there's 3,500 calories in a pound. So if you eat in a surplus of 500 calories every single day, you'll gain 1 pound a week. If you struggle eating enough foods, I recommend eating muffins, bread, butter, peanuts, peanut butter, Pop Tarts, avocados, sweet potatoes. Those are all high calorie foods. Step three, you want to eat a minimum of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you need to be eating a minimum of 150 grams of protein every single day. I recommend eating 1.25 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Um, but 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight should be the bare minimum. But of course, I recommend 1.25. So you take your body weight, multiply it by 1.25. That's how many grams of protein you should be eating a day. So some high protein foods you can eat: chicken breast, Greek yogurt, ground beef, ground turkey. I recommend 93.7. It's the most affordable in my experience, and it has the best ratio for calories to protein. Fish, there's lots of options. You can eat tuna, tilapia, flounder, cod, salmon. They're all relatively low protein, low calorie, and high protein. Um, Eggs and egg whites, beef liver. Those are all high protein foods that are low calories. So you definitely need to eat a lot of protein. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight minimum to grow muscle. A lot of people, especially beginners, they're not eating enough protein. I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm still eating lots of protein. All right. Number 4. This is extremely important. If you learn how to do this and do everything I said above, you will blow up. All right. You need to learn how to properly contract every muscle. Okay. So a lot of beginners, they don't know because they're just starting out. They don't necessarily know that they're not training properly. Okay. So, for example, you need to learn something called mind-muscle connection, and that's your mind's ability to feel the muscle you're training when you're doing a specific exercise. So, like for example, a lot of people, a lot of beginners and intermediate lifters, they have certain muscles that are underdeveloped, and that's because they're not training properly. And when I say they're not training properly, I mean they're not properly contracting their muscles. So, for example, a lot of beginners and even intermediates really, they can't properly train. They have underdeveloped lats, so they'll look decent. Like say guys a year in, even 2 years in at some point, some cases, a guy a year or two in, you often notice that if you look at their physique, they have underdeveloped lats. Like there's no width and there's not really any thickness, especially compared to their other muscles. And that's because I'm sure they're training back. Like if you're in the gym for a year or two consistently, you're most likely definitely training your lats. You're just not training them properly. And what you're not doing is you're not contracting them properly. And that's presumably because they don't know how to contract them because they never properly learned how, or they never had someone to tell them, hey, you're not contracting your lats properly. But a lot of guys have underdeveloped lats or traps or rear delts. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to learn how to properly contract every muscle. You want to put emphasis on lats because these are a very hard muscle to contract, especially if you're brand new. Um, for example, about a year into bodybuilding, I took a progress photo. And I noticed that my lats were underdeveloped, and so I got to thinking, why are my lats underdeveloped compared to all my other body parts? And that's because I realized, oh, I'm not training them properly, and so I had to learn how to train them properly. How did I do that? I went to YouTube and I searched for videos on how to properly contract all of my muscles, okay, specifically my lats. And what I would recommend y'all do is you go to YouTube, you search how to contract a specific muscle, and you want to watch videos from professional bodybuilders, okay? And you want to watch videos from professional bodybuilders because these are guys who are literally who train to get as big as possible, and so they know pretty much everything. They've pretty much mastered how to grow their muscles, and so there's a lot of videos on YouTube, but a lot of it's not good. Um, but you wouldn't know it's not good unless you know, um, unless you're competent. You wouldn't know the advice is bad unless you're competent. And so what do? You watch videos from professional bodybuilders because these are the epitome of like competent. They're the most competent people on the planet when it comes to building muscle. All right, so you want to watch videos from professional bodybuilders. All right, um, do that, and you want to learn how to properly contract every muscle. This might require you to lower the weight. It's most likely going to require you to lower the weight, especially if you've been training for a year. If you're a year or two in, but I assure you, if you do this, and especially if you do this as a beginner, right? If you do this as a beginner, if you learn how to properly contract your lats, your rear delts, your traps as a beginner, even your chest too, if you learn how to properly contract all these muscles as a beginner and you do all this stuff, you'll blow up. So learn how to properly contract every muscle. I can't put on this emphasis on this enough. This is why there are guys who've been training for 2 years who are underdeveloped, right? And that's why my physique, this is actually what I attribute to getting jacked in 16 months. I put on 25 pounds of muscle in 16 months. This is one of the big contributing factors is learning how to properly contract muscles very early on in my career. Step 5, after learning how to properly contract every muscle, you want to start training every muscle 2 times per week. Okay. So throughout my own training, in my observation of myself, and more importantly, in my observation of others, training every muscle 2 times a week is the most optimal for bodybuilding and strength fans. Okay, training every muscle 2 times per week. Now, but you this only becomes optimal once you know how to properly contract your muscles. Okay, so I would not suggest you learn. I would not suggest you elevate to training every muscle 2 times per week until you can optimize the amount of gains you'll get from training 2 times a week. Okay, so for example, if you're training lats twice a week, but you can't properly contract your lats, you're not going to get the gains. Okay, you're not going to get optimal gains. They're going to be like a fraction of what you could get. All right, so but a routine, you can follow any routine you like, but this is a routine I did. It's a very popular routine, and it's known for its good gains, especially in your first 0 to 3 years of training. And that's push pull legs, push pull legs. Okay, now push includes any muscles that require you to push, so chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull requires any muscles that require you to pull the weight, so that's lats, biceps, traps, and your legs are legs. Now it's push pull legs the first 3 days. You're gonna do push pull legs heavy. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to start with 4 reps, and every week I'll add a rep until I get to 8 reps. And once I can do 3 sets of 8 reps, I'll increase the weight by 5 pounds and start over. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm doing barbell bench press, 150 pounds. Week 1, 4x4, 150 pounds. Week 2, 4x5, 150 pounds. Week 3, 4x6, 150 pounds. Week 4, 3 by 150 pounds, 3 by 8. Once I get to 3 by 8, I'll add 5 pounds, do it over again. All right. Then we have push pull legs high volume. Push pull legs high volume, similar, but I'll start with 8 reps, and I'll increase. I'll add a rep every week until I get to week 4, which is 12 reps. And once I can do 3 by 12, I'll increase the weight by 5. Now you all might be thinking this is very, very slow progress. Okay, but here's the deal. As a beginner, sure, you can add more than 5 pounds a week, because you'll make gains substantially quicker as a beginner. But once you get into like 3 years of consistent hell, I'd say once you get really to 2 years of consistent training where everything's on point, where everything's perfect, the gains start becoming a lot slower. Okay, of course, it depends on your genetics, your God-given talent, your natural ability, your ceiling, your potential. But generally speaking, for most people, right, after 2 to 3, really 2 years of like extreme consistency, where you're eating everything right, you're eating protein, you're eating enough calories, you're getting enough sleep, you're drinking enough water, the gains start to slow down. And so, like, I actually do encourage a lot of people to, uh, increase your strength slowly, because increasing strength slowly is how you truly gain strength that lasts. It's how you develop your foundation. But regardless, push pull legs heavy, push pull legs high volume. You don't have to do this, but I recommend this because of how good it is. But what's most important is that you train every muscle 2 times per week. Once you learn how to properly contract every muscle to optimize the amount of gains you will get from training every muscle 2 times per week. And with that said, that is all I've got for you guys today. If y'all are interested for one-on-one coaching, how to get jacked, how to bodybuild, how to become shredded, how to bodybuild and run concurrently, how to become a hybrid, all that good stuff. Links in the bio if you're interested. If y'all liked the video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.